All right, so what gets you out of bed in the morning? That is an interesting question.
My alarm clock.
Yeah. When I hear that right now, I'm like,
coffee.
Because my eyes open.
Yes.
You know? But the essence of that is like, what motivates you to get out of bed? How do you answer that?
People.
I mean, I'd
Like your
probably
kids?
echo that. Like,
yeah, my kid. Yeah, loving on people. That's my thing.
Yeah. Getting out, serving.
Yeah.
Honestly, like there's a lot of purpose in what we do. So
Most mornings when I don't even typically wake up to an alarm, I typically wake up before my alarm goes off. But most mornings, if I were really, really honest, sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to get up. And I love what I do, and I have passion for what I do. I definitely have purpose. We're going to talk through that. But sometimes just getting started is just hard.
especially on rainy days,
Yeah, on any day.
like dreary days, it's really tough.
Unless I'm working
empathize
through
with
a project or something that's on my mind that I had a hard time falling asleep. So most days, like that initial like getting started for me has been very, very difficult. But then once I'm up, I'm good, and I can really dive into my day and fulfill whatever. But sometimes, just being brutally honest, I'll struggle.
As soon as you get older, you'll be in pain and say, God, my back hurts. I got to roll out of bed. And then Lori's cranky. She doesn't have coffee, so that's my
most
first
people,
thing to do.
Yeah,
so.
most people, it might be that first sip of coffee is when they get up.
Oh,
My wife would
love
shoot
that.
me if she knew I was going to say this, but I can get really motivated to get out of bed if she's still asleep and has that dragon breath thing going on. You know?
Oh,
And I'm like,
Oh,
yep, I'm out. Yeah, but it'd probably be the same for her.
Yeah.
Truth be told.
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
We've all been in that boat where we're like, dang, I can't. No, I'm out. All right, so we're gonna be talking about freedom of purpose today. This is I think the most difficult of the 4 freedoms. The first 3, income, time, and choice, we can all relate to so well. We've all experienced, as kids, or young adults, like not having enough income, and understanding the desire for that. We all understand the desire to have and own all of our time, and we all want choice, But when it comes to purpose, I think we all want it, but most people out there are like, what does that even mean?
Right.
I think for most of us too, early on in our careers, we're thinking like our purpose is to gain freedom of income, is to own our time,
Good point.
Oh, that's
is
a
to
good
get to
point.
a place where we have choice. Like purpose kind of evolves
Ooh.
through your life. So I think that's why it's sometimes difficult to really put a finger
Charlie,
on
you've got
what's
a
beyond that.
tough one to overcome that one. I always walk away saying, wow, Charlie had that one liner that really, that was a good one, because I feel like that is what we let that define us.
Oh, it is. I remember in graduate school talking to my friends from Asia, what are you going to do when you grow up? Well, I'm going to graduate here. I'm going to get a job.
Yep.
I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a dog, and I'm going to have some kids. It's like the American dream. As you're going through that time frame, that's at least me anyway, that's what I looked at.
Yeah. Climbing the corporate ladder, like used to be the next big job. How do I go get it? When you're laying in bed and thinking about, it's like, I got to go get the next job. Well, why? Like, you got to understand the why. Why do I? Maybe, but I don't know. I agree. You got me thinking.
So if that's not the purpose, what is
the
like
purpose?
when we're talking about freedom of purpose, what are we really going after here? And I think this is the elephant in the room,
Sure.
so to speak, of if my purpose isn't to make money, own my time, and be able to choose what I want to choose, what is purpose?
People get mad at me for saying this, but I always say, what do you want on your tombstone, and work backwards? What do you want to be remembered as? What is going to be your stamp on life, your legacy? And then back into it and figure out your actions. But what do you want to be remembered by? To me is, the impact that you made in this world. To me, that is like the big part of it.
I would struggle if somebody asked me that question. I don't think I'd be able to answer it, because what I thought I wanted, God didn't want for me. So what I would write on my tombstone, God was like, really? That's not what I want. You
Yeah,
know?
I agree with you. I don't think it's about me necessarily.
Yeah.
It's what am I supposed to,
Yeah.
what was I created for, built for?
Yeah, and what were
As
your talents
opposed
given?
to,
Like
I want to be the top dog or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah,
not
purpose
it.
gets beyond those kind of
Yeah.
life marks that you were just saying. Like graduate, get a job, get married, have kids, have a dog.
Milestones, yeah.
These milestones, okay, and then what? Because I think
Yeah.
that's where some of this emptiness you have in corporate life, where people are like, I've done everything. I've outperformed even my parents now. Now what? Like,
Right.
what? I did all this for what?
Well, and I will say finding God, finding Jesus later in life, which I'm approaching actually tomorrow is my 5 year in finding Jesus. But finding him later, I think now as you say that, like that is when it got really deep and next level for me, because it was, well, what are my next 2 roles and what am I doing to go get that? And now it's deeper than that. And not only is it deeper than that, but there's joy in the journey. And I think that's where God gets his action. He's like constantly stirring and constantly working. But I do think he helped me figure out what's on my tombstone, what I want on my tombstone.
Well, I can remember going to college, and super long time ago.
You are really old.
Thinking through that, and I knew exactly what I wanted. I mean, as a freshman, I knew exactly what degree I wanted to graduate with, and I set my majors, and they never changed. I know college students are always like, "Yeah, I'll figure it out at my second year or whatever," and I knew right away. And then I get out of college, and God was like, "Yeah, I don't want you to do that," and I want you to be a financial advisor. And we struggled. And I say we, it was like me and God. And, I was resentful and I was frustrated and sometimes even downright angry. And then God changed my heart about 6 years into this business. And I realized that God's purpose for me was to be a financial advisor. But in college, even as a kid, I was like, no, I want to be a pastor. And that's where I was like, what do you want on your tombstone? That's where I would struggle, because I would have never put, financial advisor or whatever on my tombstone. I would have put pastor, lover of Jesus, follower of Jesus, something like that. And now looking back, seeing God's hand in my life, that being a part of something bigger than myself is how I would define purpose in this discussion. And looking back, my vocation is a catalyst to the purpose God has in my life, and I can see it all interconnected. And I'm a stubborn guy, I'm a driven guy, but I'm very stubborn, and I think that's why it took me so long to find my purpose. And I think there's probably 2 sides to that. I feel like you have the individual type of person, the stereotype that I am, this hard-running go-getter, whatever. And then you have the other person that's like, hey, I've got job to accomplish. It might not be the entrepreneurial type. It might just be the guy or the gal, the person that's like, I gotta supply for my family. I gotta take care of my kids. I gotta do all those milestones, and that is my purpose. Where the other type of person is like, I gotta chase. This person's like, I gotta fulfill,
Like, provide.
And this is the hunter, the gatherer, maybe those two. Yeah. And I feel like no matter which type of person you are, you're grappling with the same thing.
Sure.
What am I really trying to do? What's the bigger thing in my life that I want to be a part of that'll pull me out of bed? And this is a tough discussion.
Well, and not even to go sad, I was at a networking group the other night, and how this topic came up, I'm just not sure. But I actually didn't bring it up. And it was an example of something that got brought up that really just stopped me in my tracks is when you're an addict.
What kind of event was this?
I know. We all do some coaching, and there's a similar theme that was running through some of the coaching that we did, and it brought up addiction. And one of the women brought up something, and it made us all stop and think that a lot of times, you're adopted, but you were adopted out of a family that really had a lot of trouble. You and your siblings all ran into hard times. Drugs, as an example, alcohol, as an example. Your purpose might be to stop that cycle, stop that addiction cycle, because it's been happening in your ancestry. They had talked about how one of their clients had looked up in their past, and for as long as they knew, addiction was on that stream. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that just got so deep for me, because I'm coaching somebody who means a whole lot to me. And it's just different conversation than if my coach, when I had one, was talking to me about. And at first I thought, wow, I might not be doing a good job. I'm not bringing out certain things. But the goal for them could very well be to stop addiction in their family lineage. And it just really made me think different. Like, purpose doesn't always need to be what I think you'd look up and see if you were to say, what are some examples of life purposes? I don't think we'd find that one. But to me, that would be huge, and the work that you would do along the way. And, whether it be mission work or speaking, or it just was so interesting to me to think about that. Sorry, came to my head. I thought I'd share it. Purpose can mean different things for different people.
So let's talk about the person out there that I've been so much in my past of like, hey, I don't know what my purpose is. And let's figure out or discuss very quickly what that could be. And I'm reading a book right now. I'm always reading. I've read 180 books in the last 2 years.
That's awesome.
I found that out. I looked at my app yesterday, and I was like, dang, I read a lot. And this new book that I'm reading has nothing to do with purpose. It's called The 12-Week Year. It's an awesome book. I really enjoyed it. And the first section of that book, first chapter, digs into your meaning, like your purpose. And I was like, what? But it was so good. And it said this line in there: if you don't have passion to get out of bed in the morning, if you don't have passion for what you do, the job that you have, if you don't have passion to get better at life, it's not a passion problem, it's a vision problem. And it blew me away. I was like, whoa. I stopped the book and I instantly started writing an email to myself, because that was so impactful to me from the standpoint of that's a big part of this discussion. It's not about not having purpose. It's about not seeing your purpose. And for me, as a kid, I've always been driven. I'm going to school because this is what I want. And yes, God wants that for me, but not the way I thought he wanted it. So he changed how I saw life 6 years in. So I always had the purpose in my heart, but I didn't see it the way God saw it in my life.
Isn't that a proverb?
I don't know, is it?
Where there's no vision, the people perish.
Yes, that's a very good proverb. Proverbs.
Purpose is more of a life aspect, not the individual pieces of
Yes.
life.
Yeah.
Whether it's this is my career path or
Yep.
I'm going over here. It's
a lot of
the overall life
Like
aspect of it.
A lot of times it doesn't even matter what you do.
No, you can
Right.
feel your purpose.
Right.
Purpose can be
Whatever your
either
career
within
is.
your vocation or completely outside of it. Like it can kind of operate wherever it needs to be.
And that's a hard thing to grapple. And I feel like, for anybody who's watching this, who's grappling with, I don't understand the purpose for my life, let this be the freeing statement, where just because you can't see the purpose in your life at this moment doesn't mean you're not fulfilling your purpose.
That's right.
Right.
For 6 years from the day I was born until, God really opened my eyes to the real purpose in my life. I don't want to say I wasn't fulfilling it, because he was preparing me along the way. So the good news is, even though I wasn't in the right frame of mind or didn't have the right glasses on or whatever you want to say, I was still doing what I wanted or what God wanted me to do. And yet I look back and I'm like, did I waste my time? I don't think so at all. So I don't, and that's the hard part. So many people feel down, I just don't have purpose in my life, or when they get to that moment. Most people I would probably say, oh, no, I've got purpose or whatever. But then when they're alone, they're thinking in their own head, they're like, do I really? And that's the freeing part I want people to have, because this is almost a demoralizing topic to discuss, because nobody wants to discuss it, because most people aren't passionate about what they're doing in life. And then you get around somebody like that and you're like, I want what they got.
Yep.
I want to live that life. That's kind of where I think
But I
most
think a lot of
us live.
times you got to look at people and understand you can't walk through door number 3 until you walk through doors 1 and 2.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the way you're being prepared, because this is who we need you to be at some point. But you can't get there unless you have all of these other experiences throughout your life.
Yeah, and we've kind of been sold this what I may butcher this, so I apologize, but it's like if you find your passion and you can marry that with what you do, you never truly work a day in your life.
Right.
You know, like that nomenclature. Like I feel like that's the pursuit so many times when it's like, well, maybe there's some of that. Like I kind of have to do the stair steps, some things that I don't enjoy right now, so that later on I can fulfill my purpose and have this, you know, kind of better aspect of it.
And I will add
balance.
to that. You know, if you love what you do, you never have to work another day in your life. You can fall in love with what you do. You don't have to love it before you do it.
Right.
And I feel like that was me in this business. Like I hated financial advising. I mean, the first 4 years at Morgan Stanley, I would come home like miserable hearing these advisors have discussions about their interactions with their clients and how much money everybody's making. And it was horrible.
Yeah.
Like I was literally angry. Now, I am not that person today. I have completely fallen in love with what I do. I don't feel like I work. Like I love what I do. So every little aspect of it. Well, I shouldn't say every aspect. But most days I absolutely love what I do. You know, sometimes it is still a job. But the reality is I don't want to give the message that you have to love it before you do it to not feel like you're working. You know, God can change your heart, your mind, the way you see things, because that's what he did for me, changed the way I saw it. And then I fell in love with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't it so often that something troubling or challenging or something you don't like happens before you find the right or what you enjoy? And I know for me, you know, it was my little buddy who helped me realize that I love coaching and helping other people more than, you know, being that individual contributor that I always thought. You know, and that is a little bit career, but then it led to so many other things. But some of the most challenging times in my life, you know, no longer playing softball, no longer working at Frito. And I think I had started the whole purpose thing at Frito, but coming here, I'm able to do it all day, every day. Whereas there, it was a portion of my day, but it helped me get there. So, and I would never complain about any of those steps, but
So let's give
it's hard when it
some
ends.
practical advice, because I feel like we've had a good discussion.
Yeah.
Practical
But
advice.
let's try to narrow this down a bit. I was power washing my
Here we go.
Segue.
Narrowing it down.
power washing my driveway this weekend, and my boys, you know, they're like, "Hey, can we use that to wash your car?" They really wanted to foam up my car. They see it on TikTok and, you know, YouTube, where you watch a guy or a person take a power washer with the little soap thing on it, and then they make the car completely, they paint it with foam. And then, you know, they wash it and they rinse it off. And we were talking about the different nozzle heads. And then, you know, it goes 40
Don't
degrees.
use this one.
Yeah. Well, they have a 0 one on my power washer.
Oh boy.
That literally, if you shoot it, somebody's going to get mad at me. We didn't do this, but my kids wanted to. They wanted to take the 0 one, which is a line, and it would shoot like 100 yards. Like from my house, like it shot from
7
the front
neighbors
of our
down.
neighborhood or from the front of our
Just
lot.
that powerful.
I mean, into the street that's like an acre and a half, like down the road. And he's like, "Do you think we could cut a tree in half?" And I'm like, "I don't know. We're not going to find
not gonna
out."
find out.
You know? It would draw in the concrete.
Oh, I have no doubts.
So, and with that in mind, let's narrow the focus so laser focused that you can get, you know, and that's the, you know, when it's wide, it doesn't do any damage, you know, it won't hurt anything. But, you know, when you take and you narrow everything, I mean, the distance that
far.
you can spread,
Sure.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. And I feel like for purpose, you know, I really want to give practical advice, you know, that can help individuals, people, even us, you know, understand a little bit more about our own purpose. You guys have any practical advice? I'll start. I think a lot of it is introspective,
Yep.
self-reflection, you know, but you can't stop there.
No.
You know, that's probably the first thing. Like, what do you love? You know, what do you like? But even still, even with my story, you can't stop with what you love right now, because I hated what I now love. Literally hated it. Told my wife, this is the last job I would ever want to stay at. And now it's all I ever want to do.
It just happened to be at that spot.
At that moment.
Yep.
So if you're in one of those difficult places and you're like, well, it's not doing what I want to do now, I don't want to do this. Yeah, I was there.
And maybe the location just needs to change.
Well, my prayer when God changed my heart, I prayed a very specific thing. And this is what changed. I said, I had this point, God had me in this business, and I came home devastated. One of my buddies got a full-time job in ministry. He was working not in the church, and he was offered a job in the church, and that's all I wanted. And then I came home, I was crying. I was so miserable. I was happy for him and sad for myself. And my wife comes home and she's like, what's wrong with you? And I explained the situation. I was like, I'm sitting on the corner of my bed, and I'm like, we have to pray right now. And we have to pray two things. And we have to ask God to answer one of the two. Doesn't have to ask for them both, just one of the two. Either change my heart or change my circumstance. Because something had to change. You have to change my heart for this business or change the situation that I'm in to get me in a different situation where I don't hate. Because I hated what I did and I hated where I was at. That's a very bad place to be. So I prayed either change me and let me change the circumstance, or change my circumstance to change me. Mm-hmm. So God changed them both. Literally, I got another job the next day. I got offered another job the next day. Walking in the mall. It was a total random incident. And then God changed my circumstance, and then later, 2 years later, changed my heart. So he answered both of those, and I don't, on the self-reflection, sometimes the self-reflection is, do you need to change my heart? Because I hate what I do. Should I love what I do? Can I love what I do? Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't self-reflect from the standpoint of what do I love and what do I hate. It should be what should I love and what should I not. It would be kind of my advice on the self-reflection. And that's just because of the situation I went through. If I hadn't have gone through that, I would not have had it. I'd be like, if you hate it, move on.
I also tried to, whenever I was making a career shift, I tried to look at the things and had people around me to help connect the dots of things that maybe I wasn't looking at. Not so much likes and dislikes, but how's your career kind of moved to this point? What are things that you've been doing and excelling in that maybe you haven't even seen? And, I noticed that almost every job I was at, I was able to help mentor, kind of coach. I was always someone that people would at least bounce ideas off of, that would come talk to. So I'm like, okay, there's something that people are wanting to at least engage in conversation with. So that was just one of those markers where I was like, okay, maybe there is, because not to the full extent of Paul, but I was like, what, a financial advisor? This was not on the radar of any career choices I ever.
But you had been asked several times.
I had been asked. People had seen that in me of and at different, different agencies and stuff, they were these roles kind of kept coming up that people were speaking into me that, hey, I think this is something you should explore. Mm-hmm. So that was just kind of along that same self-reflection.
And if you don't know, get out there. And I got this on my head a little bit because of my daughter going to college, and it's, don't feel like you just have to go to school and play softball, right? Don't be afraid to try a new club. Learn a little bit about yourself and put yourself in positions to stay comfortable. Hard for Paul, you were in a bad spot everywhere you looked. Keep one foot on first a little bit so you have the strength to go do it. But try new things and get to know yourself and see if there's other things out there that may bring your joy, bring you joy and help you realize what your true talents are. And, maybe that'll help you get to the next step of getting closer to your purpose, if not finding it.
Yeah. Just kind of keeping an awareness of where you are in life and open to the possibilities of some sort of move. Because, like Ruth in the Bible or Richard Dixon with Israel, you were born for such a time as this.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So it might not be the whole, most of your life might be just preparing you.
Right.
For your purpose.
Well, Noah was 80 when he finally built the ark.
That's right.
My, don't judge me. I watched High School Musical.
Not making any promises.
Well, I know. I watched High School Musical, not just one, not just the second. Yes, the third. And it's because I had movies on my mind because I was supposed to go see this new movie.
When did you watch these?
over the weekend.
All three, huh?
All three. All three.
Judgment is happening at this
Yeah,
moment.
anyway, the one-liner
I'm
that
gonna
just
bite my tongue on that one.
I know, bite your tongue. Anyway, I remember, if you guys have ever seen it, it started with, Zac
Nope, never seen
Efron
it.
going up on stage to do karaoke on this cruise ship that he was with his parents where he was miserable.
Which one is this?
The first one.
Okay.
And the guy who invited him up to karaoke, the DJ said, "You'll probably thank me for this one day." And it turns out that if you haven't seen it, it came out in like 2007. Spoiler alert. But the next thing you know, the woman that he, falls truly, madly, deeply in love with was the other person that was forced up on stage. And it's all from that interaction that led to everything. And in the moment, it was, I am not going up on stage to karaoke. What are you talking about? I'm so uncomfortable right now. But mom and dad said, get out and maybe you'll have fun doing something on the cruise ship that you're not doing now.
So the point of this
Was you might not know, but one day your future self, it was piggybacking on,
No, that's a very good point.
No.
Sometimes you need to make yourself uncomfortable
yes.
to find passion in your life.
Yes, and there is, and I have a very wise friend. She's listening. She'll know. Joy in the journey. I used to say, journey, just get me there. Result. Well, what's the result? What's the end? Because when you get to the end, what is it? Now, where's the joy? Like, what are you working towards anymore? Like, now it's boring. Find joy in the journey of whether you think you're there, whether you're so far away and you're completely lost, or somewhere in the middle. Find joy in the journey of the next step, even if it is karaoke,
The only other thing I would add to these is understanding what you value. When you self-reflect, when you get uncomfortable, when you're thinking through all of these things, I would probably put on the hat of value. Like, what do I really value in
Stay
life?
true to that.
What matters to me? When you were doing your journey of the next career choice, when you were doing, what do you value? You've said that multiple times.
Yeah.
I think that's even when I came here, like my number one thing was time. Like that was the major thing my wife and I have always valued in our relationship, even down to when we used to make financial choices when we were first married, and you had to really budget what you wanted, and we'd call it the 24-hour rule. When we'd go to the mall or whatever, and there was a major purchase, and we had different dollar amounts on them, we had the 24-hour rule, and we knew we wanted to buy something at Pottery Barn or whatever it is, and it was like thousands of dollars. We'd say, okay, this is what we want. We got to wait 24 hours. So time has always meant something, to us. So, that's what we valued. What matters to everybody else? What matters to you guys? When you think about what pulls you out of bed, and you think about the purposes in your life, it has to connect back to value. Because if you want to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, the only way that's going to bring passion and purpose in your life, it has to completely align with what you value most. And if you don't know what you value most, you're never going to be able to see purpose in your life. And is that hard to figure out? Like, is it hard to figure out what you most value?
I think sometimes we just have to slow down and actually think about it. But most of the time we're hard charging. Like, we've got life that's happening, you're trying to provide, you've got kids, and values sometimes just kind of,
You got different priorities.
You got priorities.
Multiple priorities at the same time.
And they're competing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things that you
Right.
feel like you're supposed to be doing versus things that you might want to try doing.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I saw it, but the Find Your Why, Simon Sinek, the
No.
TED Talk, does that mean anything with what we're talking about here? Is that something worthwhile for people to kind of look at?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that's just a different framing of the same question, right?
Right.
What's your
Like
why?
your purpose, your why.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
That's right.
That we went through that exercise years ago.
Yeah.
That's probably why you're here right now.
That's exactly why I'm here. I mean, that was probably the starting point and impetus of all of this.
That was how many years ago? 7?
Probably 6 or 7, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. That was his first book. Now
What's
he's
Your
got
Why?
multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Golden Circle. The Golden Circle was one of my favorites. But the What's Your Why? All right. Last bits of nuggets of goodness that we can give away here.
I think I already said mine. Find joy in the journey, and don't be afraid to, to stumble a little bit along the way. I like CB, but you got to walk through door 1 and door 2 before you can get to door 3, and so many of us have had challenges in, and I don't want to assume that we're all there. I think I'm there, but I never know either. So just be open-minded, find joy in each step, even if they're hard. Might be mine.
And don't be afraid to sing in karaoke.
Don't be afraid to.
May lead to your wife.
I
Or
think people can
Yeah.
be actually
Oh, yeah,
living in their purpose, but they can't articulate it.
Yeah.
It's just too hard to pinpoint. This is where I am. This is my purpose.
Yeah.
But they're actually living in it.
I'd say be patient, be gracious to yourself, that you might be living it out right now. You haven't been able to kind of articulate that yet.
That's so funny because that was literally mine, is give yourself some grace. I feel like sometimes, and I've done this to myself, and I still even do this to myself, if I don't feel like I'm living out my passion, I'm mad. Like I have more to give. There needs to be more impact for what I do. I'm not just a financial advisor. I don't just make money for people. And sometimes when you trap yourself into, I'm not doing anything that means anything for the greater good, sometimes we just feel bad. And that's why just give yourself some grace. Through this whole freedom of purpose, it is a journey, and it's a journey, like we're emotional beings. We're never on the high all the time. And we all want to feel like I'm making a huge impact. Everybody on this planet wants to feel that. So if you're not feeling that, that's okay. Like, give yourself some grace. Follow through with self-reflection and alignment and value and understand and chase after your purpose. Chase after what you want your purpose to be or to know what your purpose should be. But along the way, it's not a 100 on and a 0 off. Like once you find your purpose, it's not like, oh, check.
Yeah. It's not a destination either.
Yeah, that's when the journey starts, I feel like.
Yes.
It's not an ending, it's a beginning. So, this is fun. This is actually a deep yet a very good
fun.
conversation. So we have one more. We're a culmination. So we started this whole series kind of introducing it, then we went through each freedom. And then next week, we're going to talk about what I think is the most important part of the 4 freedoms. But you're going to have to wait until then.